This will be brief, but we did want to give you folks some kind of an update of where we stand with our FY24 planning. We've been really spending a lot of time, 3 or 4 hours today, just in terms of planning FY24. Multiple meetings that all my colleagues have been putting together with their level groups. So just a quick review, some of our budget rule. Kathy, I'm not sure. I mean, if you want to talk just to kind of start this off in terms of thinking about 24.
Yes. And I'm glad, Liam, that you started with talking about the amount of time. So I'm sure everybody realizes that we finished up on the 23rd doing our presentation. We have had no less than, I think, 6 or 8 meetings with our central staff, working with it just to make sure everybody understands, with our principals, with our department heads, looking at everything from, I'm going to call it efficiencies, if there's such a thing at this point, but that's something you do in every budget, moving forward, but also preparing as we go forward. And I also want to say at the start of this that we have one school committee meeting, as everyone's aware of, in the month of February. We have the vacation break. We do have a meeting on March 1st, which is a Wednesday of that first week back, and we are preparing to be able to share some of the reductions and the suggestions. And I want to say to the school committee, we're not only looking at reductions as we have to do in preparation if in fact the override does not pass. I want to say to everybody, I remain very, very optimistic and hopeful that we will have this infusion of the $4.5 million in our operating budget. But in preparation, we're not only making recommendations, but a rationale, and also looking at options. So conversations today about a possible program as children age up, looking at a successful program, which can be very costly when you're talking about some of our students that we keep in district. It's excellent. We've seen a lot of success, but that is a cost that we knew was coming. And again, we're looking at putting it in, but talking about options, talking about rationale. Also looking about different programming. And we're also highlighting, so what are we doing moving forward? We're highlighting areas and talking about just to be prepared. The override passes. This is the area of, let's say, green recommendations that come back, prioritize. This is what would come back, an area of yellow that we have to have more discussion. And what I'm saying about an area of red, sometimes there are reductions that you make in a budget. So it'll be more clear as we move forward, but we just want to hear the work that is going on as we start to prepare our recommendations to the school committee. So the one thing I said to Liam is, I know this is a repeat and we have a lot on the agenda, but I want to make it clear that we're trying to maintain the current level of service provided to our students and build that sustainable budget over time. Hence some of the discussion that I just had.
Thanks, Kathy. So we've looked at this already. Some of the growing student needs is one of our major budget drivers. I don't think you can, you can't come out of a conversation right now with the teacher or principal hearing about those needs. It's real. It's with us. We're not alone in that, but this is certainly significant. The rising costs and expenses, I think we all can experience this and know this to be true. And then obviously using of one-time funds a little bit, Chris, which just talked about. So these are some of our major budget drivers in FY24. On Ping, I didn't want to not get back to this out-of-district tuition rate increase. So this is really, OSD stands for Operational Services Division. They are the ones that set the rates that private schools, when we have to, and we don't have many students, we have between 115 to 130. I think the report has 120 students that are out of district. That means we are not able to service those students, and it is in the best interest of the students and the families agree to send them out of Newton. That's also why Newton has done an incredible job investing in these programs. One of them, Kathy was talking about. That gross tuition is approximately $13.3 million, or around $100,000 per student to send out of district. Again, this is the piece we look at. The rate increase for the last number of years, I've seen a history of this. It has been typically 1% to 3% rate increases, more keeping up with what a typical school budget increase might be. I think there's a variety of reasons. They looked at a wage stability factor. They have proposed a 14% rate increase. So that means that every one of those out of district schools can increase their rate by 14%. That would have the impact of approximately $1.8 million on our budget. Now, there are some mitigating factors that we need to think about and look at, and what ultimately ends up in the budget may be slightly less than that. It's possible we get some additional circuit breaker. However, circuit breaker is a year trailing. So expenses in FY24 next year won't actually be reimbursed until FY25. So the reimbursement we're getting from in FY23 are actually what we report in FY22. And this goes back to the kind of the piece that Kathy's been working on from March 3rd, talking with the Tri-County superintendents and legislators to get them here for a breakfast and talk about some of the impact. And this is for Newton. That's obviously a large number, but even smaller districts. There was a long business manager listserv noting how much this was for each of these districts, and many of them it was a smaller amount, but their budgets in many cases were a quarter of the Newton budget. So 500,000, 700,000, those increases were very large on a $30 or $40 million budget. So same type of impact on those schools. Kathy, I don't know if you want to talk any more about
I've been talking about it, I think, for 2 or 3 months. It was such a surprise when we looked at, a 14% increase. It really is unheard of. At this point here, as I told you, I've met with our Tri-County superintendents just last week. So we are hosting on March 3rd. Again, thank you, Mayor Fuller. But we are bringing I've had some outreach with our senator, our legislators, just to make sure, again, that they certainly are aware of some of the concerns. We are poised that day with superintendents from around our area to not only share this particular, budget buster, whether you're a big district like Newton or you're a smaller district, it is having an impact statewide. So what you hear me talking about is happening at the North Shore Superintendent Roundtable and the South Shore Superintendent Roundtable. So this is advocacy going on all over the state. So we are going to not only talk about this, we have a couple of other items that we'll share with our legislators. And hopefully, as Liam said, the concern is the kind of relief. There could be relief in circuit breaker across the board, which is probably something that they're already having discussions, but it will not impact us this year. So there are opportunities, whether it's pothole funds, and we are all anxiously awaiting, I think, the governor's budget, which I believe comes out before March 1st. I think it has to come out before March 1st. Or on March 1st, Mayor?
I think we can expect to at least get the cherry sheet numbers before then, so we may get a sneak preview.
And also, I want to tell everybody, when you talk about this kind of advocacy, the other thing is gratitude. So for the past couple of years, whether it's been, ESSER money or the CARES Act or OPERA or people coming together, and you talk about the very support, certainly for this community, we are very grateful for people coming together, whether it was lunches, whether it was technology, whether it was social and emotional support. So it gives us an opportunity to also be thankful and to certainly put forward our requests as we continue to move beyond the pandemic.
Thank you. So these are, I won't belabor these again, health insurance. The city is going out to bid actually for health insurance. We're going to get some information. The information may be after the budget process, but this will be very interesting for us to see what's out there. We've talked about, we actually have gone out to bid for our special education vans. We're expecting between 7 and 10% rate increase there. And then our gas and electric utilities, and what we're expecting, particularly on the gas supply rate, and our electric usage is back up as well. Again, this is a slide we had. This is just a repeat. So some unknown, certainly the outcome of the March 14th operational override. All of our collectively bargained contracts are expired at the end of the school year. The full impact of the inflationary pressures on us, we're trying to finalize that right now. And then some of the pieces we're just talking about, state aid, that's money that the city gets, but it's really important money for the city. Chapter 70, which is really the state's way, that's their educational funding formula. Kathy spent a lot of time working on that Chapter 70 money, circuit breaker, and certainly our grants. Excuse me. All right. This is the override slide here. Just certainly wanted to highlight, the two debt exclusion numbers, Countryside and Franklin, just to kind of put it back out there. The reason for the difference on Countryside is the MSBA portion, putting in there. Both of these projects have a similar budget amount right now in the low $60 million range. So it's not a difference in funding. It's just the fact that the MSBA would contribute more. And then the other piece would basically be the override money for us. So the piece that is circled here, I apologize, is the $4.5 million that we've been talking about. And we've also got Horace Mann Elementary School, $750,000. A few key takeaways here. Almost 75% of all this funding is attributable and going towards Newton Public Schools. I'd also just highlight certainly the parks, fields, courts, and playgrounds. Many of those are around our schools. We're the beneficiary of those funds, as well as sustainability and climate resiliency. Something like Pierce and the boiler, the idea of electrifying our buildings. That's something that is really Josh is focused on. We're focused on. So we're excited about that. We'll also hear a little bit about some of the phase 3 solar project work that we're going to do. So these are the votes and the pieces. I would put it to the mayor if she wants to add anything to this, or if I got into that off. She's been talking this for a while. Okay. Areas of reduction. As we looked at this, if we're looking at this type of budget gap, I think it's clear that we're going to have to touch areas getting to the classroom, which is really the last stop for us. But with that size, we would look at non-personnel expenses. We'd look at administrative and operations, extracurricular activities. We heard a number of parents tonight talking about how important it is, some of those things for our students, and then classroom and school personnel. This is some of the ongoing work here. We've done our staffing reconciliation process. This is actually a process we do with the HR department. We go line by line, staff by staff, and we actually send it out to the principals to review and confirm that each of these staff members are at their buildings. We go through this is in some ways our bottom line zero budgeting, particularly on our staffing. That work is done. Our colleagues have been doing level meetings to review and incorporate all the feedback with these possible reductions. This is really challenging work that for them to be going through and for all of us to be going through, completing our departmental budget, and then making sure that we have all our enrollment driven reductions. So again, Kathy talked about, we will have reductions. We do this every year. When Newton was growing at a time, we would add for enrollment. As we have declined, particularly at the K-8 level, we will have a reduction in staffing. I think the high schools, there actually may need to be some addition. There was supposed to be some reduction last year in total number of students, and there was actually an increase. So they're almost 2 years behind in terms of their enrollment numbers right now. And then obviously some of the work to close this gap, developing some fee increases. I'd like to present some fee increase ideas to you folks to get your approval. We can only do that with your approval. And we'll look at some areas there with and without the override. Any possible expense reductions, looking at class size scenarios that we would have here. Particularly Aisha and Toby are looking at class sizes and team sizes at the middle school, what this impact would have to be, number of staff, and what that impact would be on our students. And then looking at kind of some data on extracurricular and athletic programs to target some specific reductions there. Again, really difficult things that we don't want to do, but things that I think we need to look at. Our next step is certainly to refine our assumptions going into this budget. As you know, you've asked us to look at 2 budget scenarios. The first budget assumes an override. The second one is without the override. We're certainly trying to build community awareness. We've been doing that now for a while. We're going to continue to update the school committee. We talked a little bit about this work with the OSD and the district rate setting. That's really what that is about. And then March 14th. March 14th is the City of Newton override ballot questions. I do believe some early ballots or mail-in ballots have gone out to our residents. So that is out there. So that's the budget preview. Kathy, I don't know if any parting piece you have there.
You know, like all of you this evening, we sat and listened to during public comment, 3 parents that again talked about the importance of your overall education that you have always provided to the students in Newton. That is our intent to continue to do that. So when you hear us talk about reductions, we're preparing, but that is not our goal. You asked me months ago as superintendent, you said to me, superintendent, what do we need in this budget? You know, what are the needs of the district? And you were very keenly aware of different presentations from a number of our departments. So we will have that information just so we never lose that direction of what does it take in 2023 going into 2024, 2025 to educate a student, this generation of students, making sure that we focus on academic excellence, we focus on equity, we focus on academic opportunities. We have heard parents talking to us. We were at one of the schools, I think on Friday, it was very emotional, and they were talking about the challenges for families, the challenges for students. We were talking about the challenges for staff. So we're keenly aware of all of those things, and we're going to do the very best we can to dig deep. That's what is happening at the meetings we're presently having. Digging deep, trying to make recommendations, trying to keep away from our students. But what we can do, and I'm going to ask the community again, when you looked at that last slide with all of our students, athletics, students in classrooms, people getting together, clubs, extracurricular. So our goal and our opportunity is please be educated. You can go to the city website, you can go to the school website, you can come to forums, you can ask questions. We're putting up frequently asked questions so people can continually see this information. So what I am asking on behalf of our students and on behalf of our school district is to educate yourself and to make sure that you are an active part of this process. And that means gathering as much information so you can make an informed choice. So we will continue our work and we will continue, as I said, on March 1st to bring you clearer updates.
I think it's time for us to take up the vote on the resolution. Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4, yes, Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Abstain.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 8. Yes. And Mayor Fuller.
Yes.
So that resolution passes by a vote of 8 to 0 with 1 abstention. Thank you.